environment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desire for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Okay, with this metta thought, let us continue our practice. As we mentioned, let us focus our mind on our breathing. When we focus the mind on the breath, at first we don't see very much in it, but later on, as we stay on the breath, we can notice the breath, the variation of breath, and we notice long inhaling as long inhaling, long exhaling as long exhaling. When we pay attention to that, soon we will realize long inhaling turn into short inhaling, short inhaling and short exhaling we notice. Then we can notice the beginning, middle and end of long inhaling, the beginning, middle and end of long exhaling. This simply means when the inhaling begins, we notice the touch of breath at the tip of our nose or nostrils. That is the beginning of inhaling, of long inhaling. The entire stretch of breath to the end is the middle of long inhaling. And when that ends, that is the end of long inhaling, then there will be a very brief pause. To this pause, exhaling begins. This is the beginning of long exhaling. The breath, entire breath leaving the body is the middle of long exhaling. Then it comes to an end. That is the end of long exhaling. There will be a very brief pause before inhaling begins again. This is how we know the entire inhaling, exhaling, long breath. When the breath turns into short, we notice the same way the beginning of short inhaling, the middle of short inhaling, end of short inhaling, and the pause. Then beginning of exhaling, middle of exhaling, end of exhaling, and the pause. These points happen themselves only when we pay attention to the breath can we notice these variations, beginning, middle, end, and pause. And knowing this entire breathing is called knowing the entire breath body, sabbakaya, knowing all parts of inhaling and exhaling. And then, meanwhile, long inhaling, short inhaling, awareness of entire breath body all become calm, relaxed and peaceful. This happens naturally, normally. Then we have relaxed feeling. This is called passambayang, tranquilizing the inhaling and exhaling. This is not artificial tranquilizing. This tranquilizing happens very naturally, automatically. All we have to do is to pay attention to the breath and what happens to the breath as we breathe in and out. Then when the breath body is relaxed, peaceful, no greed can arise there, because there is no room for that. Our attention is totally captured by these events of the breath. And then the breath, body, mind, the rest of the body becomes even more calm, more relaxed, more peaceful. At that time, resentment or anger fades away, giving way to metta. When metta we recited, we verbalized, we thought of it, and now we feel metta when resentment is no longer there. Or when metta occupies the mind, resentment does not arise. This also happens very naturally. And then, since the breath, body, feeling, perceptions, volition, consciousness all become very calm, relaxed and peaceful, sometimes people fall asleep. This is called sleepiness and drowsiness. We can see this happening practically in our practical experience. When sleepiness and drowsiness arises at this time, we have to overcome that by focusing mind on the visualized bright light. We may even open the eyes, visualize very bright light, focus on it, then sleepiness and drowsiness fades away. Mind becomes very energetic, active and alert. However, after that, we may experience excessive energy. This energy can cause our restlessness and worry. Restless because we have not completed certain things, or we have something that we have done incorrectly, or we may remember past some traumatic experience, or we might ponder over the future. This is what happens when the mind is very active. That also happens very naturally. So we have to overcome that by focusing mind on the present moment that tranquil, calm, relaxed, peaceful moment called passaddhi. That is one of the factors of enlightenment. So now when everything is calm, relaxed and peaceful, this tranquility or tranquilized state or tranquil state of mind arises. Then restlessness and worry fades away. Still we may have some unclear mental state which is called doubt. In order to get that out of our way, we have to develop our confidence, trust, faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. We all understand that the Buddha is the perfectly enlightened one who by himself attained full enlightenment by following the same technique, mindfulness of breathing. Mindfulness of breathing he used for attaining enlightenment. That is what we are doing too. And then he saw the Dhamma that he realized very clearly and made Dhamma his own teacher. It is impersonal truth or reality. And then he advised us to follow that Dhamma. Following that Dhamma, many millions of students of the Buddha, disciples, followers, attain the same state of liberation. So we have the lineage of liberation, lineage of enlightenment, and we are going to be one of them who have attained liberation. And therefore we can have trust and confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Then we have joy because all the hindrances are out of our way. Trust and confidence is in our mind. Joy arises, which arises by degrees, leading up to making even the mind more calm, more relaxed, more peaceful. Then we gain happiness, which is the outcome of peaceful mental state, not agitation or excitement. When happiness arises, that leads to concentration. When we gain concentration, mind is very sharp, clean, clear, one-pointed. That is very good state of mind to focus on the aggregates again. The body, feeling, perceptions, volition and consciousness. When we focus the mind on them, all we see in them is they are rising and falling. Every tiny little part of our body, in the cellular level, molecular levels, they are all rising and falling. We cannot see that without real deep concentration. That is what we do when we gain concentration. The purpose of doing is to get rid of our clinging, craving, attachment to anything in these 5 aggregates. When we do not have greed, hatred and delusion, we will be free from suffering. Friends, this is the summary of a very long instruction to meditation. With this I stop, and we try to practice it within this short period of time now. But if you remember these instructions, you can use them for your meditation, longer period of meditation, hour, 2 hour and so forth, as long as you meditate. Whenever you meditate, remember these instructions to follow. Now I stop, and let us follow this for a short period. Now unmute. It was not unmuted before. Okay. By means of this meritorious deed, may I never join with the foolish. May I join always with the wise until the time I attain Nibbana. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. From the highest realm of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, Chaturi, can you hear me?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay. Friends, this is the time for you to ask me questions, and I very humbly request people to make their questions short and clear. Please don't write or say an essay. If you write an essay, we cannot understand. It takes a lot of time to read or listen to the question. Therefore, out of compassion for everybody, make your question short. Okay, now Chaturi, if you have any question, let me hear them.
Okay, Bhante. The first question is, Bhante, can you please explain the significance of volition, sankhara, in the fourth aggregate?
Okay. Volition is, as we know, is a will to think, say, or do something, the will. And that is called, in other words, another name for it is volition. When we say think, we have to have a will to think. When we say something, we have to have a will to say. When we do something, first we have to have a will to do it. That the mental state is called volition. And therefore, the volition is the most important of our suffering and for free of getting rid of suffering, volition. And therefore it is called karma. Volition is called karma. Karma is things that we do with intention. Any thought, word, deeds we commit with the intention is called karma. If the intention is unwholesome, that commitment is called unwholesome karma. If the intention is wholesome, that commitment is called wholesome karma. So, and if the intention is pure, it will not even become a karma. When the intention is completely pure, clean, free from greed, hatred and delusion, that is the state of mind enlightened persons have. So enlightened persons don't have the underlying tendency of greed, hatred and delusion. Even any iota of greed, hatred and delusion in their mind. Therefore, when they have will, intention, thinking, those thinking, intention and will are not called karma. So, average person who has not enlightened, called Putujjana. Yesterday I mentioned Putujjana, I defined according to the Buddha's teaching, Putujjana is an ordinary, unlearned, Buddha called Arya, and the one who doesn't regard the noble ones, Arya, and doesn't listen to Arya's Dhamma, and is undisciplined in Arya's Dhamma. The person who is not associating with a person with integrity, Sappurisa, and doesn't care for Sappurisa Dhamma, the Dhamma of the person with integrity, and undisciplined in the discipline of the person with integrity. That's called ordinary person. This ordinary person therefore does not know the truth, Dhamma, because that doesn't listen to Dhamma, doesn't care for Dhamma, ignore Dhamma, and therefore the person does not know Dhamma. And that person has ignorance. With ignorance is ignorance of what? Ignorance of impermanence, ignorance of suffering, ignorance of selflessness. And therefore that person will, or that person thinks, that person has volition to say and do things incorrectly. If somebody associates with the wise person who is Sappurisa or noble person, or sometimes called Kalyana Mitra, that individual listen to their Dhamma, learn the Dhamma, practice Dhamma, and the person is disciplined in their teaching, and that person's will is right will, right intention, right volition. So the volition as sankhara is used for, sankhara is the term used for thoughts, words, deeds committed by somebody whose mind is not free from greed, hatred and delusion. The mind has the root of greed, hatred and delusion. With that mind, the person thinks, and that thought is called sankhara. When Arahant thinks without greed, hatred and delusion, since their mind is free from them, their thoughts are not called sankharas. That is called, their mind is called visankhara. Buddha said, visankhara gatan chitta, tannana kayamajjaga. He came to an end of craving, and the mind became free from sankhara. Sankhara is conditioner. Any kind of thought can condition our words and deeds, and therefore thoughts are called conditioners, sankharas. So in 5 aggregates, the word sankhara is used specifically for this reason, in this sense. Although sankhara has many meanings, but in the 5 aggregates, sankhara is used to express this meaning. So if you have any further question, you can ask me.
Okay. The next question, Bhante, has 2 parts. The first one is, in the Dhamma talk yesterday about consciousness, you talked about consciousness, but could you please elaborate more on the mind, consciousness, mano, and vijnana?
Right. Mano is the root man, root. From that, when senses, say for instance eye, visual objects, rupa, form, come together, immediately that mano state become active. Instead, the mano becomes active. And that active moment is called vijnana. Vijnana also known that mental mind, the mano state, immediately recognize something happened, and then mano, or that mental the root of mind, when activated, become conscious, and then consciousness understand what something happened. The difference between consciousness, mano, vijnana, and mano itself is the root. Beyond that we cannot find beyond the root. In that root, there can be, it can be free. It's called, it's luminous. Buddha said luminous. There Buddha used the word chitta. In Samyutta Nikaya, Buddha used chitta, mano, vijnana synonymously. Chitta, mano, vijnana synonymously. Of course, these are three functions of the mind. Mano is thinking state. Chitta is a variety of thinking. Vijnana is knowing. And mano is the root of all of them. And even it is luminous. Sometimes since these three words are synonymous, Buddha, without many discriminations, used these words in various places with very little difference of shades of meaning. Say, for instance, in the Dhammapada, mano pubbangama Dhamma. The mind is the root or forerunner, origin of all other mental states. Dhamma there is other mental states. Mind is the root. And then when it comes to consciousness, then it has 6 categories of consciousness. The root called mind, when activated through the sensory object coming together, it becomes active. That moment it's called vijnana. Therefore, there are 6 kinds of vijnanas. Vijnana means consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. Mind itself has its own active state called consciousness. So sometimes they are used as synonymously, but sometimes Buddha wanted to make it very clear, very sharp, meaning, but it is almost inseparable. Mind and consciousness are inseparable. They all go together. To make it even simpler, I would say mind consciousness or mano vijnana is the active state of mind. Mind is the root of the mental state. I think that may clarify or answer your question.
The next part of this question is, when an unenlightened person passes on, what happens to his or her mano vijnana? Is this mano vijnana going to be transformed into rebirth consciousness in search of the next namarupa?
Yes, unenlightened persons, mano vijnana is always subject to defilements. When the person's roots of all defilements called asava and anusaya, once they are completely removed, his mind will no longer be subject to pollution, clean. You know, in the Anguttara Nikaya, very famous statement, Buddha said, Pabhasaramidam bhikkhave chittang tanchako agantuke upakkilese upakkilitang. The mind in itself is luminous. Only when adventitious defilements enter the mind, then mind becomes polluted. And then the meditating ordinary person can see these defilements can be removed from the mind, and mind can be cleansed of all the impurities. And therefore that person strives hard, makes effort to overcome, destroy, get rid of all these adventitious defilements to reach the root, the pure state of mind. Now, when one attains enlightenment, the mind becomes pure and clean. So, an ordinary person, we cannot say it transforms. When you use the word these are the difficulty in using certain terms, certain words to express this. This is the state when one attains enlightenment. The mind, we must say, mind becomes pure and clean. The word transformation has different connotation, different meaning, and therefore I would not use the word transform. Like you have in electronic device called transformer, or the person's life is transformed, the person's is rehabilitated. When we use these ordinary terms, we have some shades of unclarity in those words, and therefore I would not use the word transform. I would say that mind becomes totally free from defilements.
Okay. Next question, Bhante. Could you please explain the word sugato from the Itipiso recitation? The word sugato, what does it mean?
Sugata is well gone, that is the meaning. Sugata, gata means gone. Well gone. Well gone means according to the lineage, Buddha lineage, this Buddha passed away exactly the way the previous Buddhas passed away. Sugata. Gata means gone. Also, this Buddha attained enlightenment exactly like any other Buddha attained enlightenment by overcoming all the defilements. The place one attains enlightenment, the tree or tree that gave himself to the Bodhisattva to attain enlightenment may be different, but the attainment is the same, and therefore it is called Sugata. The previous Buddhas attained the same state of enlightenment, and any Buddha follows the same state of enlightenment, therefore Sugata, the word Sugata. That is the meaning of the word Sugata. Sugata. Gata comes from the root Kamu is the root, and it went through certain grammatical changes and became Gata. Okay?
Just one clarification about the sutta that refers to the luminous mind. I think it's the Pabhasara Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya 1.49. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me just send that off to the
Yes.
person asking. Okay.
Yes.
And all right, the next question is, Bhante, I remember in an earlier talk that you explained that anatta is not experienced, but anatta is to be understood through wisdom. Could you please elaborate on this point?
Anusaya.
Anatta.
Anatta.
Yeah,
Anatta. Yes,
is
yes.
not experienced, but it has to be understood through wisdom.
That is correct. Anatta only through wisdom, another word for wisdom, panya, Pali word panya. Another word for panya is called jnana. These are the same meaning, jnana and panya. Both have the jna to know. So panya or jnana always defined as panya always defined as udayatta gamini panya. Panya means panya means the state of mind that sees rising and falling. It sees arising and passing away. Any conditioned things arises and passes away. So that you cannot see with your eyes. Also you cannot experience in your body. But you can know it through wisdom that become aware of rising and falling, appearing and disappearing. This appearing and disappearing is seeing them in the subtlest form. Subtlest form of appearing and disappearing is called panya or jnana. When one has this panya or jnana, then one knows that there is nothing to call self. Because according to the notion of self that many people think something exists, according to their belief, self is something permanent, eternal, everlasting, immutable, unchangeable. When we see rising and falling of everything, every moment, all the time, and then you cannot find any such permanent, eternal, immutable something. You cannot find. Now this you have to see only with wisdom, no any other way. Certain things you can see in a gross level, rising and falling, but that is not enough in order to have the full understanding of non-self. In order to have full understanding of non-self, we have to see with wisdom the rising and falling of every minutest thing in the universe. And that is impossible to do with any other way other than wisdom. And therefore, you are right, impermanence also we can see to some extent, unsatisfactoriness we can see to some extent, but impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness you can see very clearly, 100% clearly, only through wisdom. Only through wisdom. That is why Venerable Kondanya, when he listened to the first sermon, even though Buddha did not say anicca, dukkha, anatta, Venerable Kondanya saw when the Buddha mentioned suffering, its cause, its end, and the way to leading to its end. When he mentioned these things, Venerable Kondanya saw impermanence. Yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabbantan nirodha dhamma. Whatever is of the nature of arising is of the nature of passing away. Because without that you cannot end suffering. So Venerable Kondanya saw this with wisdom. And no other way you can see even impermanence, even suffering, let alone selflessness. Selflessness is the most difficult thing to understand, and only when you attain full enlightenment, the self notion, the last residue of self notion will vanish. That is called asmimana. Last residue of self is called asmimana. Thinking I am will vanish from the mind. That is the state where the wisdom becomes sharpest and clearest. Nobody else in any other way can see these three things as clearly as the enlightened person sees it at the moment of attaining enlightenment. I think, friends, these are good questions and I thank you for asking these questions very clearly. That saves time, and thank you for your compassion. Now let me conclude this morning session with my regular benediction. May all those who are in hospitals suffering from various diseases recover very quickly and return to their regular normal life and practice Dhamma and attain liberation from samsaric suffering. All the doctors, nurses, hospital staffs who are risking their own comfort, health, and sacrificing their comfort, dedicating their life, time and energy to help these people, may they continue their wonderful service. May all those who have lost their loved ones, may they be free from their grief and follow the Dhamma, practice meditation, and attain liberation very soon, liberation from samsaric suffering. And those who are supporting various projects for human comfort, liberation, in many ways they support financially, physically, and otherwise, may they continue their wonderful, compassionate service for the benefit of the world. And all others who are suffering from in various places in the world, in war zones, and without food, sometimes water, gas, and light, and all this in various places in the world, may they get all their basic facilities and have reasonably comfortable life and live long in very good health, practice Dhamma, and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. Overall, may everyone who participated in our discussions and those who are participating in any Dhamma discussion anywhere in the world with wonderful intention to liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. May all of you attain peace, happiness, and liberation from samsaric suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Sadhu, sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Thank you,
Everyone,
Bhante.
Thank you,
Saranam
Bhante.
Bhante.
Thank
Sadhu,
you,
sadhu, sadhu.
Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante. Everyone,
Thank you,
Saranam.
Bhante.
Thank you, good
Bhante.
night, Bhante. Good health to you.
Okay. Very
Thank you,
good.
Bhante. Thank you. I'm worshipping
Sadhu,
you.
sadhu, sadhu, Bhante.
Good.
Sadhu,
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 sadhu.
sadhu, Bhante.
Sadhu.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Goodbye.
Bye, Bhante. Good night, everybody.